it is 8:30, and I guess that is my cue to begin today's webinar. I want to begin by thanking all of the attendees and all of the panelists who have assembled today. On behalf of Seyfarth Shaw and on behalf of the US UAE Business Council, I'm sure, I just want to go ahead and thank everyone for lending us their time and their expertise today. The title of today's webinar is Navigating the US and Dubai Healthcare Complex in a Post-COVID World. So as you can imagine, we will be focusing a lot on the healthcare infrastructure that Dubai boasts and its synergies and connections both with the United States, but also in general with the world writ large. You do see that we have post-COVID in the title of today's presentation. That is a bit aspirational as we are still dealing with COVID, but I here and the firm, we remain optimists and we know that we will pull through these heady days soon enough. The U.S. boasts a continuously robust trade and investment relationship with the UAE in general and the Emirate of Dubai in particular. I won't rattle off any statistics. I will leave that to some of the other presenters today to discuss. But I will say that over the last 2 decades, Dubai has cultivated a particularly impressive healthcare infrastructure that does not just include healthcare-related free zones, but also a diverse and productive marketplace for healthcare practitioners and healthcare-related businesses and entrepreneurs. Just to recap a bit, my name is Sai Pidatala. I am Senior Counsel at Seyfarth Shaw. Seyfarth Shaw is an AmLaw 100 listed global international law firm. We boast about 900 lawyers in over 17 offices in countries throughout the world. I myself have helped spearhead our Middle East practice at the firm. It's a multidisciplinary practice along with a number of my colleagues and partners throughout the firm in various offices. We represent businesses, entrepreneurs, individuals, traders, shippers, investors, both based in the Middle East, including Dubai, and all over the world looking to deploy capital and to unlock investment opportunities worldwide. Next slide, please. As you can see from a lot of the logos on this slide, we have assembled today an esteemed panel, which is comprised of high-level speakers from all of these organizations, including but not limited to the US UAE Business Council, Dubai FDI, Dubai Exports, the Dubai Health Authority, the US Commercial Service, Dubai Healthcare City, and Dubai Science Park. Next slide, please. Here is just an encapsulation of our speakers list today. These various speakers will have their own presentations. Some may even have some multimedia presentations to provide to the audience, time permitting. But again, these are just a list of some of the esteemed speakers that we have today for the benefit of the attendees worldwide. Without further ado, I will now hand over the mic to my colleague, Jesse Coleman. He is a partner here at Seyfarth Shaw. He, like myself, is based in our Houston office, but he is also the co-chair of our firm's Healthcare, Life Sciences, and Pharmaceuticals Industry Group. Thank you very much, Jesse. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sai. One of the great pleasures and advantages of working at a large international law firm like Seyfarth Shaw is the opportunity that I have to work with so many great professionals. And on occasion, I get to boast about them. And this is, in fact, one of those occasions. The Life Science, Healthcare, and Pharmaceuticals Industry Group here is one of the top-tier national health law practices as rated by U.S. News & World Report. We're ranked among the top 50 largest healthcare law firms by Modern Healthcare. And as a general law service law firm, we have services that we provide across the spectrum. We represent clients across the industry, including hospitals, health systems, pharmaceutical companies, physician practices, managed care companies, medical device manufacturers and distributors, as well as cutting-edge groups like digital health companies, technology, and service companies, along with skilled nursing facilities and generic drug makers. If there is an area of your industry or your business that involves healthcare, we have attorneys that are available to help you in various jurisdictions throughout the United States and throughout the world. We're uniquely positioned to partner with clients to develop strategies for navigating and responding to industry-specific pressures, and we collaborate across all areas of practice to guide our healthcare, life sciences, and pharmaceutical clients through the maze of global laws and regulations affecting their business. As Cy had mentioned, the international group that he works with is a multidisciplinary group. Our healthcare, life sciences, and pharmaceuticals industry group is also multidisciplinary. We provide services everywhere from labor and employment, real estate and finance, intellectual property, and where I work in the litigation space. In addition to what is obviously something on the forefront of everyone's mind as they work through the maze of regulations, and that is data privacy, security, and HIPAA. And there are a lot of folks here to talk today, and I know we are short on time, and just a couple of minutes is not enough to share with you all the great things we're doing in our group. But I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible and would love to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Thank you very much, Jesse. That was a very apt description of our healthcare, life sciences, and pharmaceuticals industry group. You are modest. You are a modest man. I know that you are actually very well known in your field, and I'm happy and proud to say that the firm boasts a very productive and renowned healthcare group internationally. With that being said, I'd now like to introduce the US-UAE Business Council, which is a longtime collaborator of ours. In particular, I'd like to introduce Danny Seabright. He is a friend, but more importantly, he is a stalwart advocate of US-UAE business and trade relations, and he is the esteemed president of the US-UAE Business Council. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks so much, everyone, and good afternoon in the UAE, good morning in the United States. We're honored to support Dubai FDI and its associated organizations in this virtual outreach to the Houston area, partnering closely with Seyfarth Shaw on this, the organizer, which is has been an outstanding partnership and continues to be. So thank you, Cy, and your colleagues for that, for sure. I'm going to keep my remarks very, very brief. I just want to say that in addition to wonderful participants from Texas and the greater Houston community, I need to point out that we also have representatives from state economic development organizations from Utah, from Florida, from Missouri, from Mississippi, and from Georgia on the call this morning. This is very much in line with the Business Council's effort and mandate to reach out across the United States and provide opportunities for American companies, American partners to learn more and understand more about what are the opportunities for business in the United Arab Emirates and in Dubai in particular with regard to this call today. I also want to just shout out a few companies: Pfizer Upjohn, Johns Hopkins, CHOP in Philadelphia, UCLA in Los Angeles, as a few of our member companies in this healthcare sector that are represented today, and underscore the importance of this vertical and this sector, not only for the UAE's development goals and objectives, but for our partnership between the UAE and the United States going forward in the future. Very, very critical, very, very important. Finally, I want to, as always, say thank you to our very close friends and colleagues in the U.S. Embassy in Abu Dhabi, the U.S. Consulate in Dubai, and also the UAE Embassy in Washington, D.C., under the leadership, of course, of Ambassador Al-Ateba. Without partnership with our two governments, we could not provide the value and the service that we do provide for our members, and we very, very much appreciate that. Dubai FDI and we have participated in countless, Your Excellency, countless missions to the U.S. at this point, and as I said at the top of my remarks, this virtual mission to Houston is what we must do, how we must continue to provide value in this COVID world that we're living in, and we always appreciate the opportunity to do so. With that, I really want to save time and provide more time for our Emirati guests to speak, so I'll stop there. The Business Council is based in Washington, D.C. We're responsible for the bilateral relationship between the two countries, and we're here to help and assist in any way that we can in providing accurate information and getting out word and news about opportunities in the business and bilateral trade and investment relationship. Back over to you, Sai. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Danny. Your remarks, as always, have provided the perfect segue into our presenters and our presentations today. With that being said, I'd like to move on to the next speaker. It is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce His Excellency Saeed Al-Maheri. He's the Consul General of the United Arab Emirates based in Houston. He is a fantastic proponent of U.S.-UAE business relations, and he is most definitely an ally in terms of trade relations and political ties. So thank you very much, Your Excellency Saeed Al-Maheri.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone in Houston, and good afternoon to our friends in UAE. I hope everyone has been safe and well during this uncertain times. I would like to start today to giving a special thank you to UAE Business Council, our friends at Seyfarth Show, our partners in Dubai FDI, Dubai Export Office, and Dubai Health Authorities, and the other entities from UAE. While we must meet virtually today, I believe that these online engagements are article to keep the conversation moving in the week of COVID-19. And I hope you find today's presentations informative and useful. I look forward to opportunity to speak with you in person as soon as it's safe to do so. Our main function in the consulate are to protect and defend the right and interest of the Emirati national living in U.S. and to promote greater understanding and unity between Emirates and Americans. Today's gathering reflects our border communities to make doing business in UAE as attractive, transparent, and straightforward as possible. The UAE maintains a strong and dynamic relationship with the state of Texas. Over the past 4 years, Texas exported about $10.9 billion worth of goods and services to UAE, the second highest export of total of 50 states. The UAE also maintains close relationship with several organizations across the state, including the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center here in Houston. This partnership is particularly relevant in light of today's focused cooperation in the healthcare sector. Beyond economic ties, UAE has also partnered with the City of Houston to help with Hurricane Harvey's recovery effort. Last year, the UAE announced a $6.5 million grant of the Greater Houston Community Foundation to support homeless relief, community rehabilitation, library service, and public health expansion in the Houston area, in line with UAE track record to provide assistance to community in need. I will not take a long time. I will leave my colleagues in Dubai FDI, His Excellency Fahd Al-Gargawi, to start his speak, and looking forward to collaborate with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We do appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. I will now introduce our next speaker. I think you can move to the next slide, please. It's with pleasure that I now introduce Ms. Vandana Nair. She is a commercial specialist with the United States Commercial Service. Ms. Nair?
Thanks, Sai, for the introduction. So as Sai rightly mentioned, I work with the U.S. Commercial Service based out of the U.S. Consulate in Dubai. So today we may talk mainly about, briefly about healthcare in the UAE and also what U.S. Commercial Service does for U.S. companies. David, can you move on to the next slide, please? Next, please. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll talk briefly about healthcare in the UAE, what are the various drivers for the sector here, and also the areas of opportunities for U.S. companies, and how U.S. Commercial Service can help these companies who are interested in coming to the UAE. Next slide, please. So yeah, why UAE? Let's start with that. Being one of the most open economies in the world, UAE is a significant export market for the US. The UAE is United States' single largest export market in the Middle East, with around $19.5 billion of exports in 2018. Apart from that, UAE is United States' third largest trade surplus globally. Another factor is UAE has a diverse expat population. UAE has around 9.8 million in population, out of which 85% is expats from over 200 nationalities ranging from Asia to Africa to Europe to America. So that makes it an ideal location for business to come in because there is a market for everything and anything here. UAE enjoys strategic location, between Asia, Europe, and African markets, which makes it a major trade hub in the Middle East. So many international companies and foreign companies have their, office headquartered in UAE, predominantly in Dubai, where they do their business from Dubai office to cater to their requirements in the region. Moving on, we have, another factor is ease of doing business. There is no much restriction on profit transfer or repatriation of capital from the UAE to the outside of UAE. And also UAE has a high competitive, import duty, which is 5%, which is also exempt in many sectors. Another factor I would highly say is no personal income and capital gain tax. English is accepted as a language of business, even though Arabic is the official language. Next slide, please. Healthcare in the UAE. So UAE has a very strong reputation regionally when it comes to healthcare. The sector is very well established in the UAE with many international brands and also homegrown brands. The countries with the COVID-19, government has further increased their commitment towards the sector. So UAE healthcare market, as rightly mentioned in this slide, is expanding rapidly, mainly because of the evolving needs of growing population and also the nation's ambition to become a regional medical tourism hub. So UAE market is growing rapidly due to significant investment in healthcare infrastructure and technology. UAE was very well positioned in effectively responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So moving forward to the post-COVID-19 era, government has discussed both short-term and long-term plans. Short-term plans including increasing government spending and increasing government budget on 2020-2021 towards healthcare sector, and the long-term plans including building nations' capabilities to fight future pandemics, including coming up with new vaccinations, digitization of immunization records, and also finding new strategies for supply chain. The Ministry of Health has also come up with innovative ways of delivering services, including applying telemedicine to a great extent. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the expansion drivers. Like, what are the main drivers for the sector in the UAE? So the demographic shifts. So its World Bank has estimated that the population ranging from the age of 65 is currently 1.1% in UAE, and it is going to increase to around 4.4% by 2030. That would give ample opportunities for foreign firms to come to the UAE who can cater to these age group, who can provide solutions, medical solutions for this age group. Second factor would be problematic lifestyle habits. UAE being a very busy market, very busy country, people have a very busy lifestyle. So they tend to eat out from restaurants most of the time, eating. So because of that, creating poor nutrition, and also the sedentary behavior and lifestyles that people have created obesity among the population here. So 66% of adult population are obese and or excess weight, and out of that 66%, 37% have excess weight. So that is one of the biggest issue UAE is facing. And also UAE has some chronic conditions, which includes cardiovascular diseases, cancer, diabetes are prevalent in the UAE. Chronic cardiovascular diseases are one of the main reasons for fatalities here, followed by stroke, which is also a major reason for disability and a third major cause of death in the UAE. As I mentioned earlier, top medical tourism destination, UAE is looking at welcoming around 500,000 medical tourists by 2021. So UAE is working towards it. They are also wishing to be a world leader in wellness treatment. Next slide, please. Moving on to challenges, UAE also faced few challenges in terms of recruiting and educating enough quality medical personnel. If you look at the current medical personnel in the UAE, there are only less than 3,000 Emirati medical professionals. So most of the medical professionals are expats. So it is highly difficult for UAE to retain these medical professionals, mainly because they consider UAE as a temporary location, or they consider UAE as a stepping stone for gaining some experience before they advance their career in the West. So the country's vision to become a medical tourism hub is hopefully help in attracting medical professionals and sustaining those medical professionals in the country. Containing costs is another challenge in the UAE. So it's forecasted by Village Towers Watson survey that the cost of healthcare in the country is increasing at 15%, which is around $1 billion is wasted every year, mainly due to identity fraud by patients and also by prescribing of medicines by medical professionals due to the financial incentives provided by the companies to these medical professionals. So government is coming up with various initiatives to curb this, mainly by introducing electronic health records, wherein they are looking at one patient, one record, which will help in reducing a lot of these containing costs. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the various opportunities international firms have in the UAE. So earlier in my presentations, telemedicine would always be in place 3 or place 4. But due to the current situation, I think telemedicine ranks first. And UAE has also come up with various policies on telemedicine, mainly to reduce patients' visits to the hospitals and also limit the movements of patients between the hospitals. So say, for example, Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi, they are doing 50% of their consultation over telemedicine, their OP consultation, and also after surgery consultation are done over technology platforms. Pharmaceuticals. UAE is a big importer of pharma products, but that has begun to change, and many international firms have tied up with local companies in the UAE to produce the medicine, to manufacture the pharmaceuticals locally. Companies like Pfizer, Janssen EMEA are to name a few who have presence in the market. Medical equipment, it is estimated that the medical equipment sector will grow at a rapid pace. That itself is an opportunity for international firms to come to the UAE. Many US firms like Abbott, Medtronic, GE Healthcare, Johnson & Johnson have their offices headquartered in Dubai, and they operate out of their Dubai office to cater to the region. information technology. As I mentioned earlier, for the past decade, UAE has been gradually implementing electronic health records and health information exchange, mainly to reduce duplication and medical errors. So companies like Kerner Corporation and InterSystems, they are working with health officials here to implement these both in public and private sector. Smart technology and apps. So UAE has already embraced smart technology and apps way in advance. So in fact, DHA, Dubai Health Authority, they have come up with smart pharmacies where robots are being employed to dispense prescriptions, and they can dispense around 12 prescriptions in less than a minute from a store of up to 35,000 medicines. Next slide, please. So this is healthcare in the UAE in a nutshell. I'm sure the speakers in the webinar will be able to share about the future vision of Dubai post COVID-19. So I can now talk about US commercial service and how can we help US companies come to the UAE. So US commercial service is the trade promotion arm of Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. We help US companies export to the foreign markets. We have offices, 100 offices across the United States and over 70 international offices outside of the United States. Next slide, please. So we do offer services for US companies. We counsel companies on opportunities in foreign markets and also various strategies, marketing strategies that can be followed in those foreign markets. We have market intelligence reports which are published in our website, which are our research reports, which companies can use to decide whether to export to that particular market, whether to go to additional markets, or to go to a high growth or challenging markets. Business matchmaking is one of our flagship services. It has a range of services. So if we can discuss about that offline, you can contact us if you would like to know more about it. Advocacy and commercial diplomacy, again, we can advocate on behalf of US exporters to win public contracts, and also we help US companies overcome trade barriers by lobbying with the host government. And we also do trade and investment promotion programs through certified trade missions and various other programs. Next slide. I'll just quickly go through the top tips for doing business in the UAE. It's all about network, network, network. It's not about what you know, it's all about who you know. We would recommend, tap into the goodwill of various trade associations and business councils like US UAE Business Council. Attend in events, make the most of their support, their guidance, their advice. Free zones is undoubtedly the main reason why UAE is highly regarded among the global companies. But before free zones, they also have their own limitations in terms of doing business with the onshore companies. So before coming to the UAE, please do your homework and weigh various options, whether your company fit into set up in free zone, or should it be an onshore company. Meet you on Friday. It sounds very normal in US, but UAE has a very different working week. We have working week from Sunday to Thursday with Friday and Saturday off. So please get well versed with the local customs and traditions before flying out of US to come to the UAE. Face-to-face meetings are highly appreciated, and building personal relationship really matters here. But in the current situation, we highly recommend to do face-to-face situations, at least virtually, and personal relationships are highly regarded. Each emirate has its own jurisdiction. So UAE is a federation, but when it comes to commercial activities, each emirate has its own jurisdiction. So please check whether your company fit into that jurisdiction before deciding to set up in one emirate. That's it. So altogether, UAE is a very rewarding place to live and work. We highly recommend companies to come here with an open mind and be ready for challenges and an exciting journey. And if you would like to know more about UAE, please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are on the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vandana. That was a fantastic presentation. It really gave background and context to our discussion today, so very helpful. And also it is very comforting to know that the U.S. government continues to offer these types of services which help facilitate trade and investment. With that being said, I'd now like to move on to our next speaker. He is not just a friend and a longtime collaborator of mine from my days when I lived and worked in Dubai, but he is indeed a global leader in his own right. His Excellency Fahad Al-Gargawi is currently the CEO of the Dubai FDI office. He also holds other chief leadership positions with international organizations. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai, and thank you for Seyfarth Shah overall support. I remember we've been there in Houston last time, September last year, and we're glad to be back with Houston and with many other different states in the U.S. I believe there are many different states representatives and also the audience being with us today. A big thank you to your support before and now, and I'm sure later, for the different navigation through our missions with different states in the U.S. A quick thank you as well to His Excellency Saeed Al-Muhairi, our Consul General, who've been always extending a warm welcome and support to our activities in the U.S. and also supporting us here with all our missions since the beginning. The U.S. UAE Business Council, with the support direct coming from Danny Seabright and himself. Thank you, Danny, for being always with us. And also a great thank you to U.S. Commercial Services for being with us again and supporting us in many different missions. My presence here is also joining to discuss on opportunities in the Dubai healthcare sector and how business and investors worldwide, and particularly in the United States, can profit from them. Healthcare has been a focus for the government before the last 5 years. There have been a great focus on it and gained a lot of momentum because of what we're living in the COVID-19 pandemic. And this has highlighted more the advantages of being prepared for such major global events. A robust, responsive healthcare system based on demand analysis can steer a country through a crisis such as the one brought on by this pandemic. We have with us today representatives of great speakers from Dubai Export, Dubai Healthcare Authority, Dubai Science Park, the Dubai Healthcare City. They will provide us with a comprehensive overview of the Dubai advantage and its preparedness for inviting investment and practitioners as well as service providers from healthcare sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, while the UAE and USA have a strong ongoing trade partnership, we've maintained the largest trading partner for USA since 2009 in the Middle East and North Africa region. In 2018, the total trade grew to 24.5 billion, with US exporting 19.5 billion of goods to the UAE. As been said, the UAE, because of that, is the fourth largest trade surplus for USA globally. The U.S. export to the UAE again grown, and I'll leave that to my colleague Saad Al-Awadi to expand on. The trade also grows with the UAE supporting more than 116,000 American jobs. More than 1,500 US firms from ExxonMobil to Starbucks, all the way to the delightful Cold Stone Creamery have presence in UAE. UAE, the national airlines, Emirates and Etihad fly more than 200 non-stop flights per week between UAE and USA cities. This is because also the long established gateway that have been started between Dubai Airport to the MENA region for the American businesses. We hope to see normalizing flights coming and resuming soon to the same sector as well. UAE considered a very diverse and stable and secure country. It also offers a global connectivity to ease of doing business with an effective digital transformation strategy that the government went through. Dubai in the last 7 years emerged stronger during this tough time due to the focus on being a smart city, and that helped us in the digital transformation that is taking place across the government and private sector, positively impacting every aspect of life today. Dubai is a city of future as well as a gateway to the region, and also a global hub in the global economy. More than 200 nationalities and over 60% of Fortune 1000 companies has presence in Dubai. We believe that the first healthcare sector from US was established in UAE in 1960s with the Oasis Hospital in Al Ain, with many different service providers and healthcare systems being brought to the country, all the way to American hospitals, and also the last join of a large participation coming from Cleveland Clinic operating in the Emirates of Abu Dhabi. Dubai healthcare sector is rapidly expanding to meet the evolving need of growing population for our nation and for the region, which represents a 2.4 billion consumer market in the Middle East, Indian subcontinent, North and East Africa. And the ambition is to become a regional medical tourism hub, as was stated. Also, a strategic investment will ensure that this expansion meets the dual goal of providing high quality medical facilities and personnel at competitive costs. UAE have adopted many initiatives, such as UAE Vision 2021, effectively addressing these challenges to guide the sustainable growth of the healthcare sector. As also Dubai strives towards becoming a connected smart city, healthcare service delivery is a crucial part of the digital readiness and innovation across services, supply chains, and industries. While we are striving today to really provide the best services we can to everyone living in this country as well as the region, we as a nation have continued our ambition of moving forward with the space. And this is a momentum that I would like to take a note for, that UAE space program is reaching higher altitude right now, where we're expecting in a few days to launch the UAE Hope mission to Mars. This is an unmanned mission that would reach to Mars in, after 7 months of launching. We expect the launch that was delayed for 2 days because of the weather condition in Japan, to resume soon. This is a pride moment for the nation, for the leadership, and for everyone living in this country. As when we dream high, but we also work hard to achieve our dreams. This is a warm welcome to everyone who visit us in UAE whenever time allows and when conditions are back to normality. We are determined to work with you as partners to achieve a goal of a world-class healthcare and support businesses to the entire region we cover. Our team at Dubai FDI and also the team of Dubai team altogether being here with you is committed to ensuring that your investment or your support to business will peak a different height in the future. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. That was a very succinct and apt presentation. I just want to say that you have been the Central Ambassador of Foreign Direct Investment in Dubai for a long time, and we are very pleased to have you here on the panel discussion today. It is no secret that Dubai is a bastion of international trade, a key component of which is exports and export flows. To that end, it is with great pleasure that I now introduce His Excellency Saad Al-Awadi, the CEO of Dubai Exports. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Saeed. First of all, I start with thanking our hosts and all the panelists from Dubai and the US, and welcome to the participants. I think Fahad gave very clear information about Dubai and Dubai capabilities. I will only concentrate on few trade figures between Dubai and the USA. Of course, for us, the USA is the largest economy in the world and one with the population with the highest disposable income. The United States consumes a huge range of goods and services and does so in astounding volumes. And that's why we have been targeting the country since 2011. Exporting of UAE products, especially halal and so on, is important because more than 3.45 million Muslims are in the US living, and about which is about 1.1% of the total US population. And there are 1.7 million Arab Americans in the US. Dubai Export also had a number of successful cases of UAE companies who succeeded in the US, such as local perfume companies, which is one of them selling in more than 300 stores. So if I talk about the total volume, not concentrating on the health only, we export around $790 million. Our import is more than 37 billion, and our re-exports around 11. So the figures are huge, and we can double this very, very fast if we work in continuing our visits and missions between both our countries. Most of these products are machinery, precious metal, like gold, diamond, and jewelry, electrical machinery, aircrafts, and vehicles. For today's meeting, I think we can elaborate and concentrate more on health, food security, medical, and PPEs, and so on. So I think the activities which Dubai Exports we're handling with the U.S. Are several. One of them is our trade missions. I mean, we had our trade missions every year, at least once since 2011, in coordination with FDI. And also, we have a regular exporting to the USA seminars with the U.S. consulate here in Dubai. We also initiated discussion with the U.S. consulate in Dubai for African companies to use Dubai as a gateway to the USA to export under the AGWA agreement between U.S. and Africa. I think for going forward, Dubai Exports is working on the following. So we have initiatives to support food security, health, medical, and PPE manufacturing, especially strategic manufacturing. We already formed internally in the UAE a couple of committees which will handle the food security and health and medical PPEs with the concerned departments, both federal and local. Then we can collaborate on technology transfer, especially in the area of hydroponic growing, agri products. Also develop a trade link for re-export hub. As all of you know, Dubai is the gateway for the whole region, more than 2.4 billion population. And also we have a very few major exhibitions in the area, like Gulf Food, the GITEX. We always have B2B meetings during these major exhibitions. And last, I think we have to have a good cooperation with e-commerce companies to use Dubai for regional expansions. Thank you very much. That's all in a nutshell. I think the opportunities are wide, and hope this step will be this meeting will be the first step for increasing these figures. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We are very pleased to have you on the panel today. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. For a variety of historic and modern day reasons, Dubai continues to be a export and re-export hub. And as you mentioned, it is a conduit for trade in the region, not just the Middle East, but also North Africa and parts of South Asia.
Exactly.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next speaker. I'd like to introduce Dr. Mohammed Al-Reda. He's the Director of the Project Management Office in the Health Informatics and Smart Health Department of the Dubai Health Authority. Dr. Al-Reda.
Shukran, Sai. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. Thank you for having me on such an esteemed and elite panel. I've been asked to give you a glimpse about the technology sector and healthcare, and certainly if we can start our presentation there, our slides, Sai. Okay, next please. So we have a strategy in Dubai Health Authority which takes us until 2021 safely. This strategy started in 2016 with a vision from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Rashid Al Maktoum to revamp the healthcare sector in Dubai. Dubai Health Authority is, yes, it's the government entity representing government of Dubai. However, we have a very, very strong private sector as well that we regulate, and which makes up about 70% of the market, and a 30% government sector as well, which is very, very important in doing regulation, as I mentioned, and as well in supplying services. Next, please. So I'm an informatician, so I studied informatics in Boston, and when I looked at this wonderful document that was presented by His Excellency, the Director General of Dubai Health Authority, I immediately copy-pasted all the bunch of words, and I wanted to focus on what's important. So you'll see these words highlighted in red boxes that came up a lot. And of course, you know, the bigger the word, the more important it is. You see the word Dubai there, health, medical care, establishing. But however, if I draw your attention to the words highlighted in red there, I think the importance of these words as well is highlighted prominently in our strategy. Next. So these words, I think you will commonly find them in a lot of the healthcare institutions around us in the world. However, when it you know, it hit me that His Highness was focusing on what's in front of us here, and as well as I'll show you in the next slide a word that is a favorite of mine, a word that is very, very, I don't want to say in fashion, because in fashion that would mean it's a fad word, but it's very much a word that we are currently living with. Next, please, Sai. It's called المستقبل, which means in English the future. So His Highness has already established Dubai Future Foundation, led by the Crown Prince of Dubai, Hamdan Mohammed Ras Al Maktoum, who is quite a visionary when it comes to the future, quite pragmatic when it comes to materializing these visions. Very few countries in the world, if any, have a foundation or an institution focusing on the future. Next. When we related to why His Highness wanted such an institution here in Dubai, it immediately strikes us that he wants the best to be delivered to his people right now. And here we use two examples, which is schooling or education and healthcare services. So this gives us an insight about what is on His Highness's mind in terms of delivering to his own people. And what would he like to see? Of course, we're one of very few countries as well that has happiness indicators. We used to have a happiness minister until very, very recently. We have a happiness strategy, and all the technology around us makes sense when we're thinking about the happiness of the individual. Next, please. So, in part of the Dubai Future Foundation, there was an entity called Dubai Future Accelerators, which also started in 2016, and it was a vision from His Highness to the government institutions in Government of Dubai. So we have approximately 37 government institutions. Some of them you have already seen their logos in the beginning of this presentation. When it came to His Highness's vision, really, he wanted to accelerate the presence of technology in Dubai. We started working on his vision. Very little of us knew what this vision was. We work usually in cohorts, so I can tell you cohort 1 was a disaster. We didn't know what was an accelerator. We didn't know what were we involved in. However, we believed in His Highness's vision, and we saw a lot of technologies. Next, please. We launched our program. This is the very first page that was launched by Dubai Future Foundation about the accelerators, explaining it. And of course, it was very, very difficult for companies here in the UAE to grasp what we were talking about. Companies internationally, maybe it was easier for them to understand. And we had, I think, an Italian company, a company from US, company from Canada in our first cohort. The focus was on wearables, on AI, on so many wonderful technologies around us. However, this was an invitation to the world to say, come to Dubai, work with the accelerator program. You will be supported very well. Each entity in its own right. So we had healthcare, Dubai Health Authority. We had transportation, Roads and Transport Authority, and many, many organizations in Dubai Health Authority using this accelerator space to support these small, medium enterprises, startups, to showcase to the world what is it that they were solving, what was the problem that they were solving. Of course, we attracted these companies through a challenge, which would be floated in advance of the cohort, and we would host these companies. It will be on the expense of the government entity to host them here for 9 weeks in this instance, during which we would be arriving to at least a successful proof of concept. Now, a successful proof of concept doesn't guarantee successful result. We could fail, and this is a place where we're not afraid to fail. This is a place where if you fail, fail fast, because you have 9 weeks to maximum to change your direction and make it a successful outcome. Next, please. So as you can see here in front of you, this is data from cohort 1, 2, and 3. Dates back to 2016, 2017. You can see the numbers rising in terms of government partners. We were one of the founding partners, government partners of the Dubai Health Authority in cohort 1. In cohort 2, the number rose from 7 to 12. In cohort 3, we have 13 government entities. The number of companies, of course, grew as well from 30 to 47. The number of MOUs and by memorandum of understanding here, I mean, we were in agreement as to what the proof of concept is going to look like. Now, mind you, some proof of concepts would take longer than 9 weeks. So we also entertain that. We've been working distantly for so long that when COVID-19 arrived, we were so used to it because our companies were already abroad and they were arriving to Dubai if needs to be. Next, please. Now, one of our success stories I would like to share from cohort 1 was additive manufacturing. I know the 3D printing fanatics would use this word more so than 3D printing. I think they relate to it more so. However, we had a very, very good success, more than actually one success story. And we had a very good support from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Maktoum, where there was a launch simultaneously with Dubai 3D printing strategy in 2016. Healthcare was a huge pillar and part and parcel of that strategy. Next. The focus of the Dubai 3D printing strategy at the time was construction. So there was the aim that 20% of our buildings would be built by 3D printing. Medical products also, we promised, I think, 10 proof of concepts, and we delivered more than that. And by proof of concept, I mean this is a point where our doctors, which are not a very, very easy crowd to convince, would be testing these proof of concepts, making sure that they do no harm, that they were safe to be used by the patient, because we're a very unique sector, not like even consumer products where you can print and if you don't like it, you just discard of it. Here you're printing and you are using on somebody's body. So we were very careful about it. So more than 10 POCs were delivered successfully. Next, please. So we started immediately putting our regulation hat on, thinking about what standards required. We started thinking of what proof of concepts. As you can see here, we were thinking of prosthetic limbs, 3D printed teeth, hearing aids, and so on. So I came to this conclusion that why regulate it when we are only manufacturing in a different way? Just regulate at high level. And regulation is a very fine art. You don't want to over-regulate, you don't want to under-regulate. Create some standards, and most importantly, and which is even stronger than any regulation or stronger than any piece of standardization that you'd find out there, is have a successful proof of concept where everybody can see it in front of them. Next, please. We started exploring with prosthetics mainly because you can print, you can see it immediately, you can show it to somebody, you can explain about it. So I think we started on a very good foot there with exploring what 3D printed prosthetics would do. Next, please. We started looking at wonderful designs. As you know, Dubai is always looking towards innovative, futuristic design. So this is a foot that was an artist's impression. It was a concept where we started looking at how a futuristic prosthetic leg would look like. And we challenged a few of our partners to print it. And you'll see in the next slide that we were successful. Next, please. So this is yours truly showcasing that very own same conceptual prosthetic leg in Arab Health. And this is, by the way, it's a real prosthetic leg. It would support the patient up to 70 kilogram of weight. In Arab Health, it was called the Versace leg. I'm not sure why. However, I think it was an impressive design. And again, when visitors came to the stand, our stand in Arab Health, they were able to relate to it. So this was part of the success. There's a few when we speak about AI or when we speak about blockchain, it's very difficult to imagine it. But when we speak about 3D printing, it is there and then in front of you. Next, please. So we wanted to test it on a real patient, and we wanted to test it on an adventurous patient. We knew that it would take someone who has got the guts to try it on. And this is a patient, Belinda, who unfortunately lost her leg due to a horse riding accident. And she said, I'm willing to wear it, provided it fits well and so on. And alhamdulillah, she's been wearing it since 2017, happy. And she went even beyond that. We actually changed it for her a few times because we were experimenting a lot. She didn't mind that. She was very supportive. She was very patient. But as you can see, she wanted to match her necklace with the leg, with the prosthetic leg. And we said, yes, of course, we can do that. Next, please. And then we wanted to experiment even further. And looking at some of the requests that came through His Excellency's office, we get a lot of requests to go overseas for treatment. So this is a patient, an Emirati patient who unfortunately lost both legs. And he wanted to go back to his professor in Germany to get new prosthetics, a new pair of prosthetics. So it took me 6 months of convincing to him, saying, look, you don't want the conventional prosthetic. Go for a 3D printed one. It took a lot of convincing, to him, to his mother. And alhamdulillah, after 6 months of convincing, he tried the first demo piece, I have to say, which was partly printed in Dubai as well. And he said, doctor, I have to tell you something. And we were in a ward in one of the hospitals. And he said, you know what? And I was very afraid about what he was going to say next. He said, I feel that my walk is better now. My gait is better. I said, that's great. That's very reassuring. And he said, I also feel that I don't have any back pain anymore. And this is only from 5 minutes of putting the 3D printed prosthetic leg there, both of them. And I was very happy, of course. I was over the moon. And he said, you know what? If you give me the design I have in my mind, I will go back to wearing shorts. And I want to go to the gym wearing a pair of shorts. So I said, what is the design that you want? And off you go, he designed his own prosthetic leg in the colors that he likes, in the orange color. And day one, he started wearing shorts, going to the gym. We even have a movie about him on our Instagram account of him driving his car on his motorbike. And he suddenly became this, changed from being this shy patient to being this somebody who was almost proud. He was like Iron Man, showcasing his legs to everybody that comes across him. So this is a story of happiness and how we can impact a patient's life in a happy way using technology. Next, please. This is a colleague, Dr. Hamda. She's the Director of Dental Services in Dubai Health Authority. And we've been speaking about how can we efficientize our services. And she said, the molds are taking ages to be prepared. So we started looking at how 3D printing can help her. And it used to take her to create the mold conventionally 3 days. Now, in 50 minutes, she can print about 60 molds. So you can imagine how fast and how much of a service, an improvement in service, she can deliver using this technology to her patients. Next, please. So with the 3D printed technology, we were able to do a few things. We were able to understand the technology better, and we were able to impact patients in such a way that it was a positive technology. It was a happy technology. And I mean, yes, it took a lot of guts from Dr. Hamda, from Belinda, from Fahad to venture on with us in such technologies. But you know what? These were the difficult people to convince. And once they were convinced, suddenly 70% of the crowd got convinced. And we now have a 3D printed lab in Dubai Health Authority printing approximately 200 to 300 printables for our doctors. Next, please. Now, 3D printing is something that is very close to my heart, of course. However, we did not ignore the role of everything else around us. AI, blockchain, we now have not only everything on demand, but Internet of Medical Things specifically, the role of analytics, of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, and still is helping us. It was helping us incredibly and still is helping us. So we do not ignore these roles of technologies around us. However, what I would like to say is that we have instructions from the highest level of government to convert Dubai to the highest test bed, the biggest and largest test bed in the world. So that's why you see people wanting to venture in, to be part of it. They know their stories and their pictures will go up there, and their highnesses would salute them on it, but they also wanted honestly to impact their patients' lives. Next, please. Again, working with mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, the role of informatics, regenerative medicine, of course, is very, very promising. So this is a call out to any companies out there who are interested to showcase their technologies in Dubai. Please feel free to get in touch with me. Next, please. His Highness, again, challenging all government entities. And this was all of a sudden where he started, he grabbed the mic and he said, I'm announcing 10x now. 10x basically is where you see a technology that can help you in 10 years' time and you bring it to Dubai now. Of course, with all the challenges, with all the regulation that imposes, you have to implement. Next, please. Text was an announcement in all government entities. It was a trial and scale partnering. A lot of partnering happened on 10x with many, many entities, something that I personally believe in. Without collaboration, we will not arrive to true innovation. Next, please. Of course, this is a glimpse about from our investment strategy, where we'd like to work on imaging diagnostic, dialysis centers, spine treatment centers, diabetes, long-term care, using technology and using what is now our public-private partnership law that enables such relationships. Next, please. So the gentleman in the blue square box there is His Highness the Crown Prince of Dubai, where we are always and almost on one-on-one basis get guided by his vision. His father, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Barash Al Maktoum, next to him there, raising his hand, getting all the energy. I think for all of us from his is a bliss. So between the two of them, we get guidance, we get the vision. Of course, it is very challenging for us to work with them. However, they keep us on our toes, of course. However, I think we understand the logic behind their decisions, and we understand that the service or the service that they aim to provide is towards the happiness of the people. Hence, we are all aligned towards being a technologist. I'm aligned with their vision, and I'm sure other sectors in the government are aligned towards their vision as well. Thank you very much. I hope I did not take much time, and I hope I gave you a good glimpse about technology and how it's supported in Dubai.
Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Redha. That was a fantastic presentation, and I must say it is just absolutely amazing and awe-inspiring to see how Dubai continues to transcend the conventional and to welcome the truly innovative when it comes to healthcare technology. Indeed, these advances towards progress go hand in hand with embracing science and technology and the positive benefits of science. On that note, I would like to introduce His Excellency Mr. Marwan Abdul Aziz Janahi. He is the Managing Director of the Dubai Science Park. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Sai, and the hosts and the other colleagues. I'm very happy to be on this panel and to talk about Dubai Science Park and how we can support the US-based companies to take advantage of Dubai and be part of this community. To start with, I'd like to talk about who we are, who is Dubai Science Park, and under which umbrella do we come to. If you move on to the following slide, you will see that we are part of a large conglomerate company called Dubai Holding. And Dubai Holding has basically invested in many areas, including the creation of free zones. And a free zone, as you know, is basically a dedicated area for companies that has many advantages, including no tax, no income tax, and many other things that I will speak about later. We also have a hospitality division that is known as Jumeirah, and other investments into real estate, media, and also telecommunication. The Free Dubai Science Park comes under the umbrella of TCOM Group, and TCOM Group basically is in the business of creating communities such as Dubai Science Park, but it has started in the year of 1999 with Dubai Internet City. And I'd like to show you a short video which will explain how we have progressed into different industries, starting with Dubai Internet City and then coming to Dubai Science Park in 2005. If you play the video, please, and then we'll move on to the reminder of the presentation. Excellent. All right, thank you. Moving on, so Dubai Science Park started as an idea in 2005. And at that time, moving on to the next slide, the idea was to create a community for science companies, an area that will host companies that are very large and also very small, an area where companies can do R&D, manufacturing, host offices, host ideas. So that was really an idea, and in about 4 years, in 2009, we started our operations. Next slide. So we wanted to be a community that caters to everyone in that sector, and whether you are a one-man show or you're a company as large as Pfizer. Next slide. And what we focused on is a couple of things. One is creating the infrastructure and the asset that the companies need. So we asked ourselves, if I am an entrepreneur or if I am a scientist who has an idea and would like to come and test it and collaborate with the manufacturer, can we provide that space for them? What do we need to do? So we created laboratories, we created manufacturing space, offices, and space for entrepreneurs to basically come and test their ideas. But we did not stop there, because creating infrastructure and buildings is not everything. You also need to be, provide services for those companies, whether it is for company formation, whether it is for connecting them with investors, with distributors, or even to regulators sometimes and the government. We also made sure that we connect companies with talent and industry, because it is also important for companies to hire the right people. Next slide. So when I talk about assets, I mean assets that are comprehensive, assets that are very flexible, and that is also customizable to the needs of companies. And with industry, we have obviously collaborated with a lot of industry players that are large, and also made sure that the SME sector and the startups are able to interact with those companies. Moving on. So in Dubai Science Park, we have various assets that I don't want to go into the details, but it is important that we take into consideration the needs of the companies. Next slide. So it's important to note that the sectors we focus on, because when you say science, it could mean a lot of things and many things to a lot of people. But there are mainly 5 sectors that we focus on, and the biggest sector for us is life sciences and healthcare. It constitutes about 60% of our companies, and obviously for us, energy and environment is a very important sector, whereas we focus on renewable energy, energy efficiency, and also companies that do various testing. We also focus on the food and beverage side, but more on the technology side, and on, for example, creating flavors and fragrances. But we don't go into manufacturing of the FMCG. Next slide. One of the things that we really believe in is to connect with people, and we do that in a very systematic way, and in a way that is we've been doing for a couple of years now. So we host different events, and those events are usually themed in a different way. So we have ones that focus on healthcare, called Advanced Health, and it's a series of events. We've been doing them virtually for the last couple of months. We also do a career fair for students who want to engage with the industry. So we have more than 350 companies, and a lot of them want to hire locally. So we have connected with the local universities, and during the career fair, we invite about 450 students who interact with those companies, and they're given opportunities to do their internship. We also do Green Leadership Series events and that is focused more on the energy and environment side. So really hosts of events that is done on a monthly basis. It is currently done virtually now, but hopefully soon we will be doing them live. Next slide, please. I think the government has also, the Dubai government has realized our role as an industry gatekeeper and a community that has a lot of companies, especially in the pharmaceutical and medical equipment, and we have been made chair of the Dubai Industrial Strategy 2030 to head the pharma and medical device sector out of the other 6 sectors that has been identified by the government. Next slide. So in 2018, what we did is we spent about a year meeting with different industry players and also with a company known as IQVIA, where they have all of the industry knowledge in terms of who is selling what and what product is being used. And we basically developed a strategy that is short-term, medium-term, and long-term, looking at the subsectors of the pharmaceutical and medical device sector. And we also, more importantly, looked at the enablers. So what are the things or the enablers that the city of Dubai and the UAE needs to be more competitive when it comes to manufacturing? So we are leading this strategy with the help of government, and it is something that we are fully engaged with. Next slide. We have been really also hosting a lot of companies that are in the R&D space. So one of the services or one of the solutions, I must say, that we provide is something called build to suit. So a lot of companies, shy from doing their capex investment because they're usually high, and it's not something they want to do. So one of the solutions we provide is something called build to suit, where we build the facility for those companies and they basically go into a long-term lease. So we have done it for 3 companies, actually 4 companies, and this is a recent picture taken in December of last year, where we have inaugurated the R&D center for a company called Juton, and the same thing is being done for a company called Himalaya, Firmenich, and also Pharmax. Next slide. We have been really at the forefront when it comes to the response to the COVID-19. We have had a lot of companies that are very fully engaged. Some of them were doing the diagnostic tests for the Dubai government. Some of them were providing equipment, the PCR equipment, and also the training for the PCR equipment. And some of them were, in the sanitization business. So we were fully engaged during the pandemic, and we are still, because I think this is something we would rather need to live with rather than, I don't think this is something that will end tomorrow. Although there are a lot of talks of vaccine, but I think we should really be living with it, similar to what Dubai has done. I think and this is the way forward. Next slide. One of the things that I wanted to mention on this webinar is that the U.S. companies have been really a very strong ally to Dubai Science Park. We have had a number of U.S. companies, more than 35 of them. I remember when I first joined, Amgen was the first company that I had helped back in 2007, and we still continue hosting different U.S. companies, and very lately Thermo Fisher, is a global provider for PCR. We have also hosted them, and it's important to note that all of these 35 companies employ about 800 plus people in Dubai. So they're also a very big employer, and you can imagine that they not only look after the UAE but the entire region as well. Next slide. So I just want to end my presentation here and say, no matter where you are in the spectrum of healthcare, whether you're small or large, we have a solution for you. If you have any question regarding how to do business, how to set up any partnership that you're interested in, any connection that you're trying to make, I'm sure we will be able somehow to connect you with the right person. And myself and my team are looking forward to engaging with you. With that, I'd like to thank you, Sai, and the rest of the panelists, and I look forward for the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Redha. Your presentation was very dynamic and interesting. I myself was unaware of the vast scope of Dubai Science Park, especially with respect to the life sciences and healthcare. I think the strides that Dubai Science Park has been making are very much analogous to and in parallel with, for example, the efforts of Dubai Healthcare City, which has also been doing fantastic things in terms of promoting Dubai as a healthcare conduit and promoting Dubai's healthcare infrastructure. On that note, I'd actually like to segue to the next speaker, but right before I introduce him, I do want to say that since we are coming close to the 10 o'clock time limit for the webinar, we will of course continue with the webinar. We have a few more presentations to go, but at the same time, I do want to be mindful of the attendees. To that end, I want to go ahead and announce the CLE code, that is the Continuing Legal Education Code, for those of you who seek to avail yourselves of that. That code is SS, as in Seyfarth Shah, SS8931. Once again, that CLE code is SS8931, and that is SS as in Seyfarth Shah. Moving on to our next speaker, and to follow on from my comments from a few seconds ago, I'd like to now introduce His Excellency Mr. Farhad Sadiq. He is the Director of Marketing and Communications at Dubai Healthcare City. Farhad.
Hi, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm not going to take too much of your time, so we'll move through this a bit rapidly. So I'm just going to give you an introduction about Dubai Healthcare City. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the Healthcare City is actually a thriving community of different companies that are not only B2B, or very much B2C as well. So it's highly populated in terms of businesses that provide service to the consumers out there. We provide end-to-end business setup, and I'll talk to you a bit about later about that. Next slide, please. As you can see, it's centrally located in the city of Dubai. The first phase, which was launched in 2002, is pretty much sold out. And then the government of Dubai added a second phase to it, which is approximately 5 times the size of the original phase. Next slide, please. So what we do have is our own regulatory and governance body, which means that any company that sets up in the healthcare city has to pretty much only deal with us and nobody besides us. And that provides a lot of benefits, I guess, to organizations that are new and will try to get an understanding of, the complications of being in a new country for business setup. Next slide, please. So since our opening in 2002, a lot of things have happened. We've acquired accreditation for the businesses that we have, the OPD, the outpatient clinics. So there's certain standards there. We've then established the first medical university, and there are others in the city, which works very well with the organizations that are in there. We then launched phase 2. In 2017, we launched Al Jalila Children, which is the first children's hospital in the whole region. And then at the same time, we launched our Masar online regulatory service platform, which I will touch on a bit later. Moving on, please. So just to give you an idea about some of our major tenants that I mentioned, Children's Hospital, the first of its kind, which also homes the Genomics Center, which is again the first of its kind. This is really a true feat for Dubai, because Dubai loves to be a first mover, and this Children's Hospital is something that is pretty much a beacon, I guess, for the whole Middle East as far as children's services is concerned. Next slide, please. So we have a number of medical universities, this being the Mohammed Rashid Medical University that was launched also, and I will show you some numbers in terms of the number of students that they have on a yearly basis. Moving on. We have a number of general hospitals, and I will show you some figures in terms of number of beds that are in Healthcare City. Next slide, please. And recently, the launch of the research center in order to complete the full circle to make sure that this is truly an ecosystem. Moving on. Phase 2, moving on. So phase 2 is essentially a product that is going to concentrate on well-being, and it's going to be a bit more proactive in terms of the services it provides. As you can see from this slide here, that there are projects that are already in place, and there are a number of projects that are actually in development. Next slide. Next slide. So, yes, we are asked to go back one. One back. Yes. So we are a free zone, so you have 100% ownership. And as I mentioned, a one-stop shop for all licensing and registration, I think, which is a great benefit. Then we have this concept of community, which was obviously touched on by our colleagues as well. And I think what's important is that we at the Healthcare City almost work with the organizations that are in there in order to create marketing platforms for them. What we do is we understand that essentially their success is our success. And then we've obviously had a number of different segments brought into one city. So that's from the service provider to the organizations that consult to F&B and hospitality, so that we can make sure that people who come into the city of Dubai for certain services can stay within that area. And we provide a lot of services and a lot of different clinics within the Healthcare City that actually don't exist outside the area in mainland Dubai. Next slide, please. So the whole one-stop concept, extremely helpful for businesses. Everything is online. All surveys required in order to establish is all done within our own jurisdiction, and which basically provides a lot of, I guess, ease of business setup. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is just to give an idea in terms of some figures of who we are. You can see a healthy split between clinical and non-clinical services. We've got over 800 beds across the different establishments that we have over there. We've got almost 250 medical students that are within their postgraduate. You have to understand that Mohammed Rashid was only open 2 years ago. So this is something that's working forward, and we do a lot of educational events as well, because we essentially harness and work with our tenants in order to make sure that we bring that across in terms of thought leadership for the city of Dubai. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of some of our business partners out there, you can see some brands that are international in terms of what they provide. And again, as I mentioned, it's across a number of different sectors. And I think that's one of our strengths. We try to provide a holistic feel for our tenants so that it is not only a business sector. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of some of our American partners out there and some numbers in terms of the healthcare professionals that are, you can see over 200 American citizen healthcare professionals. As was pointed out earlier, yes, we do have a lot of expatriate caregivers that are established in the city of Dubai. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea in terms of our COVID initiatives, we were at the Genomics Center at Al Jalila Turin. We performed a sequencing with first a COVID ill person. Then we have the COVID control center established at DHCC, which is actually a big honor for us. And finally, digital agility. We've been working with a number of, if you want, telehealth services that are established within the city. And today we do a lot of our, a lot of the telehealth services that are, or clinics that are providing services are done through telehealth services. And that pretty much ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Farhad. That was very helpful, and we do appreciate your insights. In keeping mindful of time, I'm also going to now quickly segue to our last and final speaker on the slate today, Mr. Walid Marhoun. He's a Senior Manager, Investment Promotion Division of the Dubai FDI office. Walid?
Thank you, Sai. Good morning, our audience in the US, and good evening for our colleagues here based in Dubai. I know I'm the last one. I'll go very quick in my presentation. Just a quick recap on my CEO message at the beginning, that we are looking forward to visit the US market, as USA has been the #1 country into total FDIs come to Dubai in terms of capital and projects. So this webinar today, the Dubai Advantage webinar, is just to ensure that our continuing our messages to the entire USA market. Next slide, please. Next slide. The economy diversity in Dubai as an entire city. Dubai has been in different sectors which has contributed on the city GDP. And as shows here on the presentation, 26.4% goal for the wholesale and retail trade. It's come after the finance and industry activity as well as storage. Next slide. Dubai is well known as a tourist destination, as a tourist hub. Dubai has been open for the entire world since the first quarter of this year. But due to pandemic that's happened at 2020, we have the target to reach our visitors to complete 20 million visitors by the end of this year. In 2019, 16.73 million visitors has been visited Dubai. Nowadays, gradually, Dubai has been opened the airports for the entire world to come and visit. Since the beginning of this year, the entire world who used to visit Dubai, they are most welcome now to visit the city. Next slide, please. Next slide. Dubai is occupied a very strategic location where connects the west with the east. 7 hours flight from you can reach to 2.4 billion. Taking an example, India, for example, Emirates Airline with the Indian Air have 11,000 flights a week, which make the ease of doing business between the two countries. Business person can fly in the morning to each of the countries and close the deal. Therefore, Dubai became a hub for many international companies to operate from here and serve the entire region. Next slide, please. Here is give you the numbers of the total flights, that 140 international flights operating directly from Dubai International Airport to 260 destinations. Our national carrier, which is Emirates Airline, has 160 plus direct flight to different cities in the world. Talking about the USA, Emirates Airlines has a direct flight to 11 states within the USA. Next slide. Next slide, please. We are witnessing to host the biggest exhibition in the world, which is Expo 2020. For the obvious reason, this year has been moved to next year due to the pandemic, which will take place on the 1st of October 2021 till the 31st of March 2022. It's first time expo happening on the Masa region. The theme is Connecting Mind, Creating Future. Sub-themes: mobility, sustainability, and opportunities. This expo will target 25 million visitors, expected 70% to be internationally. USA has been occupied one of the biggest pavilion on the mobility themes. Next slide, please. Next slide. Dubai has a modern and very strong infrastructure and has been ranked as a number 3 on attractive investment on the infrastructure sector. On 2019, Dubai has launched the metro system, driverless metro system, which is serving the most business districts within the city. 74.6 kilometers is the targeted to be expanded by the year of 2030. Next slide, please. And this slide just shows the number of using of public transportations. As it's obvious, people since the time of launching the metro, it's been increased. This one shows only the Q1 in 2020 this year. Next slide. Dubai Plan 2021, this describes the future of Dubai through the holistic and complementary perspective. And this perspective is targeting 6 themes, which is secure culture and pro-business preferred investment destination, tolerance, offering sustainable economy, and a healthy life, plus proactive, transparent. Next slide, please. Next slide. In 2014, the government has launched the initiative of the smart, to let Dubai become as a smart city. By 2021, 100% of the government transactions will be free paper. Next slide. Dubai blockchain strategy. Dubai blockchain will help Dubai to achieve the vision set by the leadership by making Dubai the first powered by blockchain. The strategy includes the element 100 million annual paper transaction, which will save $1.5 billion, as well the first government in the world using blockchain for all transactions. The first blockchain powered government driven to the future economy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please, slide. Artificial intelligence, one of the newest initiatives in the city. $182 billion has been capitalized for the artificial intelligence. There is a dedicated ministry for the artificial intelligence, and it will impact 15 sectors. Some of these sectors, as shown on the screen: finance and healthcare, transport, and education. Next slide. $82 billion has been put in the pool to targeting 40% increase in the knowledge worker by 2021, and majority of this amount will go to the $34 billion for the clean energy projects and renewable energy projects. Next slide. Dubai is well known as a shopping paradise for the entire world. It's number 1, has been ranked for the most important international shopping, and 59 new global brands attracted to Dubai in 2017. During the pandemic, all all these shopping malls has been turned to e-commerce, and suppose all the business has been gone completely digital. E-commerce become the front line among the other sectors. Transfer from the traditional business to the digital business, which impact the consumer behavior. And most of these sectors have been increased during the COVID. It's obvious healthcare, pharmaceutical, and food and beverage, as well as the government services. Next slide, please. Dubai is well known as a light manufacturing destination, and it's targeted to become a platform for the sustainable industry. Next slide, please. The more focused sectors has been targeted for the industry, as it shows on the slides: aerospace, maritime, as well, pharmaceutical and medical equipment, fast-moving consumer goods, machinery and equipment as well. Thank you. Next slide. The government has set a strategy for the industry sector by 2030, which will increase the GDP of the manufacturing sector and make Dubai preferred manufacturing platform, as well friendly environment manufacturing destination. Next slide. This will just give you an overall of the total contribution in the Dubai GDP comes from the manufacturing, which is 9.2%. Next slide, please. I think my colleagues from DHA and the Dubai Science Park have been fully covered on the healthcare sector. I'll just go. I mentioned some of the highlights on the healthcare sectors. That 19.48, the target to be expected on the 2020. Next slide. Medical tourism has been launched in 2014, which attracted to be targeted revenue 2.6 billion by this year of 2020. And we are expecting to have 500,000 visitors by 2020 onto medical tourism, but hopefully due to pandemic, hopefully we'll close this number by the end of the year. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think I've covered this one on the previous slide, so we can move to the next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, as I promised you from the beginning, I'll be very quick in my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'm looking for any questions to be answered from our side and my colleague's side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waleed. That was a fantastic presentation. It covered a lot of ground, and I think it was a fitting end to our panel session today. So again, I thank you, and I thank the Dubai FDI. Moving quickly into our Q&A session, I'm respectful and mindful of everyone's time. However, we do have one question that has come through, which I believe is best directed towards His Excellency, Mr. Fahad Al-Gargawi, the CEO of the Dubai FDI. Fahad, the question is basically regarding the new laws and the new strides that have been made in the UAE towards 100% foreign ownership, particularly in the healthcare sector. And I believe, I don't know exactly what the question is, Al, but I believe the question is about this new development. So perhaps you can speak very briefly about this new development. What does it mean? Is there really 100% full ownership? What are the restrictions, if any, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. Thank you, Sayan. The question is about, I think, the new law. The law have been out, I think, end of last year. There is a few areas that need to be clarified here. There is a approved or positive list of certain sectors that have been given go ahead for 100% ownership. Within that, we're looking at companies who are interested into setting up in the country. There are a few parameters that will govern this, got to do with the impact on economy and the size of investment, as well as a few other technical aspects. We always support investment that would come into any sector that is on the approved list or not approved list. As long as there is a high component of technology, will help always to navigate through, even if there is non-approved list, and we can work within the parameters of investment. There is always exceptions with the impact of investment that we will see. So yes, the law is there, and there is a more information on that on our website. And I'm sure also connecting to you, Sai, you will be able to help the questions or any other questions, as we are partners in supporting such businesses to Dubai.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, Fahad. And yes, to echo Fahad's sentiments, we here at Seyfarth Shaw also remain available to help our clients' contacts and hopefully potential clients with any questions they may have regarding the legalities of doing business in the UAE, and vice versa with respect to those currently based in the UAE and in the Emirates of Dubai who are looking to deploy capital and to invest into the United States. On that note, I would like to state on behalf of Seyfarth Shaw that we are very pleased to have concluded today's webinar. We look forward to the second webinar, which will be on July 22nd, and which will focus on the logistics sector. I want to personally thank all of our presenters and panelists for giving us their time and expertise today. I also want to thank all of the attendees who have registered and who have stayed online. We have run over time a bit, but there's been a lot of information and content delivered here, which is very helpful, and I think it will actually truly help business owners, merchants, traders, and investors. So to the extent any of you have further questions, please feel free to send them through to us. We will try to field them and answer them privately. Otherwise, thank you all again for your time. Last but not least, if you're here for the CLE credit, that CLE code is SS8931. Once again, that is SS as in Seyfarth Shaw 8931. Thank you very much, and if there are any other panelists who have any closing remarks, I, of course, cede the floor to them.
Just a quick thank you for everyone been listening or watching us today. And big shout out to everyone being supportive to coming here. Seyfarth Shaw, the U.S. Consulate in Dubai, the Special Commercial Services, US-UAE Business Council, as well as our Consul General in Houston, His Excellency Al-Mahiri, and my colleagues who've been with us today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your participation here, and hopefully looking for another session coming up very soon with you guys. Thank you so much, and I wish you a wonderful day. We'll be always happy to answer any questions through the channels available. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahad. Thank you, Sai. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Video.